It is very rare that club staff will give direct updates on specific transfer moves that are in progress or have bids on them or anything like that. It is especially the case in active things that are being negotiated on the day of them speaking out. But in a bit of a twist from convention, Norwich City have broken their silence on the John Rowe deal. Specifically, the sporting director has had his say on what is going on with the conversation with Leeds United and with John Rowe, and ultimately where it's likely to end up. So, hi, welcome to the channel. In this video, I'm going to run you through exactly what happened, what exactly was said in this meeting conversation thing. You'll find out. Is it a tactic on their end? What it ultimately means for a move for John Rowe, and ultimately how the confidence in the move is looking, where we're thinking, is it happening, is it not happening? Because this could be a spanner in the works. First up, got a slightly itchy nose. We need to discuss what exactly happened. In essence, Norwich City's sporting director, something Napper, I can't really remember his first name. I should probably know that, but I don't at the moment. Let's check. Ben Napper of Norwich hosted a Q&A session in which he just invited a bunch of fans and stuff to have that little bit of a chat and sort of discuss what's going on at the moment, what's going on at the club, what the direction is. And of course, the conversation got to John Rowe, because of course it does, because they're potentially selling him. They likely also covered the likes of Sarah and Adam Ida, but I don't really care about those because they don't really relate to us in the slightest at the moment. And the answer to exactly what he said could be a little bit of a problem for Leeds United's hopes of signing John Rowe. So what exactly was said? I'm afraid we don't have the exact quote, because it was a sort of closed event. It wasn't recorded, but there were various like media-y people there, so we've got a general gist of what was said, and this came from, I think it was either Norwich Talks or Norwich Transfers or something like that on Twitter. Leeds won't be getting Rowe unless they offer a very large amount of money, a ridiculous sum. The feeling you get from the sporting director is that he won't be going anywhere. Slightly damning, especially when you consider the fact that this is the guy that is having those negotiations. And some have been very, very sure that this means that he isn't going on the Norwich side. Some are very comfortable in the fact that, like, oh, well, we've got John Rowe now, and I think we'll have him in the future because this is what the sporting director has said. One person that I have seen that is fairly reliable and has his head screwed on in terms of Norwich stuff reckons that they want to hit that £15 million mark, double Leeds United's initial bid, which I think would probably come under that ridiculous sum bit of conversation, especially considering the contract situation with John Rowe. And in my opinion, regardless of wording, this isn't necessarily going to be a cheap deal for us in the slightest, and that could be a problem. But something else that could be something is I think there is a potential chance that this entire conversation could be a tactic on the part of Napper. Honestly, this could be a big, big PR play, because look at it like this. If Norwich right now suggest that they need a big fee to sell a player, and then when they are selling said player, they do so for an undisclosed fee. Admittedly, most of the time these fees will leak out. For example, if I remember correctly, there was something along the lines of, with West Ham's deal for Somerville, there was meant to be an NDA signed or something that meant that we wouldn't know the value of the Crescencio Somerville sale. That all leaked out, obviously, but in theory, that should have been locked up nice and tight. On the Norwich side, if they suggest they need a big fee and then they sell for an undisclosed sum, the club is effectively able to say, yeah, but they hit all of our demands. And if in this Q&A he has said, look, these are the demands, he's set the sort of stage for himself in a very effective way that says, right, I'm going to keep the fans on side if I say this. In addition to that, it could fairly easily force Leeds United's hand. We could feel that we are very close to an agreement, but now we said this, so we might be like, oh, hang on, let's sort of rein this in a little bit. Would you like another £2 million just to sort of sweeten the deal a little bit and make sure that you're not going to random Norwich fans trying to make them happy with your words? And it does send a message on other moves. By saying on the Rowe deal, look, we're not going to sell for any less than our value, you are being very stern and solid and making sure that if you do sell your players, you're getting your valuations for them. Because if you don't do that, then you're at risk of effectively a fire sale of clubs going, well, you're financially weak, and just going in and signing players for less than their value. That looked like it was what happened with Sarah, so they can't necessarily fall to the same issue again and again and again and again, because then you get a reputation for a selling club, but not just that, a selling club that sells below the value. So what does this all mean? I think it's a bit weird because there's, in theory, no better source than the sporting director that is doing these negotiations. In theory, he's the best source possible. But when you consider the audience, the environment he was in, and the message he's going to try and get across, you have to balance it with the fact that it runs counter to a lot of the earlier talk of the day. So, from an unbiased journalisty perspective, Lyle Thomas at Sky said that Leeds were fairly close to reaching the valuation, which is really, really promising. And that doesn't really suit the idea of a ridiculous bid or a huge sum of money. And at the same time, Norwich's manager seemed pretty dejected on the topic when he was doing his press conference. He was like, yeah, the head's still in it, and we can't help if there are bids that come from elsewhere. And it felt a bit like, yeah, he's probably going to lose, but he's probably going to lose. We're probably going to lose him, but for the time he's here, he's training and he's going to be available. So there's a couple of little questions that stem out of this, and that is there a disconnect in the camp? Is there incorrect news being told to various journalists? Or is this a sporting director just playing that little negotiation game to try and push the price higher and higher and higher, earn a little bit more money, and maybe get himself a bonus? I don't know. I don't know how his compensation structure works. But the big question, in my opinion, is there still confidence in the move? And for me, I think confidence is still relatively high. I'm not in the position of, we're screwed, it's done yet, because I feel like with it running so counter to absolutely everything else we've heard, this deal is very, very likely still on. All of the other information points the other direction, to there being something and us being incredibly close to making this deal. And we knew from the very start that he wouldn't come cheap, because Norwich would be selling to a promotion rival from last season, but a championship rival all the same. And even though he only has 1 year left on his contract, he's still got that contract extension, which the club can activate to make it 2. It's not going to be the cheapest of deals. But personally, I think this is potentially the most important signing Leeds United will make this window, because it is the replacement of the talisman. And whilst Rowe doesn't need to be that talisman, we need to show that we are willing to replace our high-quality players when they want to leave. Because otherwise the fans would be a bit, if players are going and we're not replacing them, that's a problem. It just is. And considering we still probably need a left-back and a central midfielder, let's get this one done fairly sharpish, shall we? That'd make things significantly easier. Ultimately, I'm just landing in the position of, it'll be right. I don't see this being the biggest long-term problem. I can still see John Rowe in a Leeds United shirt by the end of the window. But that is what I think. As always, I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments down below whether or not you think the John Rowe deal is going to go through. Subscribe if you're not yet. Like the video if you enjoyed it. You could even be a channel member. That's 99p for a month, and that's all going to Prostate Cancer UK till the start of the season. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you later. Ta-ra. And now I can go to bed, because I've uploaded 3 videos in the past 2 hours. Good God. Good night.